Welcome to the Coach Santiago Podcast, where Coach Santiago shares his expert knowledge of athletic development, coaching tips, advice for parents of athletes, and how you can turn your passion for the sport into your business. Coach Santiago has over a decade of experience and has worked with over 2,500 athletes with programs generating over $10 million in sales and $2.5 million in college scholarships since 2003. We hope you enjoy each episode, and remember, coaching is an action, not a position.
All right, guys. Well, welcome to the show. This is Coach Santiago with a very, very special podcast today. We're going to be focusing on something that a lot of people are not talking about in the marketplace. As always, majority of what I talk about on the podcast is really tailored towards aspiring athletes looking to get that advantage in regards to getting college placement, gaining attention, understanding what coaches want, and that's really my vision behind this particular podcast. So bear with me as I go through this. We're going to be talking about some outside the box type thinking, but as I always say, 5% of the market actually gets to play at the next level. So if we're doing the same things that 95% of the market's doing, we're going to have a problem, generally speaking. There are exceptions to those rules. Just to kind of review what those exceptions are, if you are in the top 5 or 10% of your state, a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight doesn't really apply to you. Just because, as an aspiring athlete, as a sophomore, junior, freshman, even senior, if you're at that ability level, college coaches will find you, and it'll be easy to pick you out of a group. So, that I want to kind of put out there as a disclaimer. But in the same light, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about in this particular podcast is not something that's a bad idea, right? I mean, even if you're a player who's exceptional at the next level potentially, the things we're going to talk about tonight cannot hurt you. May not be required, as I do think it is required for those athletes who are just under that, right? If you're above average, but you're not exceptional, which is where most of the market is, you definitely want to do some of the strategies that we're talking about tonight on the podcast. But even if you are an elite athlete and you've got everybody calling you and everybody emailing you and everybody taking you out to dinner and just hounding you to bring your talents to their location, the stuff that we're talking about right now can still be a tremendous advantage, because even in that sector, there's a level of competitiveness, right? There's less players at that level, but there's still a level of competition. And what we're talking about tonight is ways to kind of stand out and gain the notoriety needed first. Because the first thing we have to do if we want coaches to give us something, we have to, give them something. And that something is you got to get their attention. We got to give them something that gets their attention. I think notoriety, obscurity are things that either play in your favor or they don't, right? I mean, we have to remove ourselves from obscurity. We have to be somebody that's known for some reason. So today's show is really going to be about your unique ability. You hear a lot of gurus out there talking about this in other platforms and other industries, but we all have unique abilities. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And I think you have to understand early as a player, early as an athlete, what your unique ability is. Everybody has a special gift. Now, your special gift could be similar to another player that potentially you admire at the professional level. Maybe it's a situation where, you came in as a freshman in high school and were mentored by an upperclassman and you've kind of modeled your game after that person. But the first thing I want to talk about is your unique ability. What is your unique ability? And this usually requires you to sit down in a room by yourself and start to think about what other people, are constantly saying is your strength. And then you doing some soul searching as well as to what is your strength and what do you really want to be known for as you're going from one level to the next, right? You almost have to reverse engineer this thing. And if you're a college coach or a pro scout, what is going to attract my attention to your game, to your particular skill set, to your particular personality? Why would I want to give you an opportunity? I think that's important to think about things in that light. So, once you establish what your unique ability is, the ability, the gift that you feel that you bring to whatever game that you play, and for the majority of the people who listen to the podcast, they're baseball and softball players. But this applies to, any sport, soccer, lacrosse, etc. What is your unique ability, right? So that's the first thing. And so let's get that under control and really get a clear picture of who that is that we're going to go out there into the marketplace and promote. Now, once you have a handle on what your unique ability is, as you begin to market yourself, as you begin to have interaction, you're going to have to do some things that require you to make a couple of different decisions here as you move forward. And there's 3 specific requirements for you to really take your unique ability and be able to go out in the marketplace and gain the advantage that you need when marketing yourself. So the first thing is, I think this requires some training. Most of the kids and people I work with are between the ages of 15 and 18. It's fair to say most 15 to 18-year-olds do not have a very large amount of time marketing themselves. You don't have a lot of time in gaining attention in the way that you want attention. You have a lot of experience in today's world of social media and texting and emails and nonverbal communication. But at the end of the day, college coaches and pro scouts have to make decisions that protect or harm their livelihood. This is no longer trying out for a travel team. This is no longer trying out for, some rec team. That coach is not supporting his family on the performance of that particular team. We're talking about college and pro scouts. These guys and gals feed their families and will feed their families for a long, long time based on their reputation to produce a winner, produce good athletes, produce good player development programs, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the first thing you need to do is you need to get with somebody that can train you so that you can role play, so that you can, rehearse your success, which is another thing that we talk about a lot in the podcast. Getting out there and rehearsing what you do. So when you meet somebody, you've got an opportunity to filter out all the noise and go in there and get these coaches to really fall in love with you. I think you need to hire somebody, work with somebody, network with somebody that can give you some basic training on how to market yourself, how to sell yourself, how to stand out, what do coaches want to hear, what keywords to say, what type of language that coaches are looking for, those types of things. So the first requirement is training. I think you got to train. You got to work at this, guys. This is not something that's going to come natural. For some kids, I'd probably say 1%, it's going to be natural to go out there and sell yourself. There are some kids that, and when I say kids, I mean young adults here, that just have a natural knack to, and they have a gift to gab. But that's probably 1%, maybe 1 to 2%. For the most part, you're going to need to work at this thing, okay? Multi-bazillionaires who are running businesses and are salespeople work on their craft. So you have to work on your craft. The second thing is I think you have to, it requires to be able to market your unique ability to gain the attention that you want. I think it also requires commitment to the process, right? The first time you go out and try to market your unique ability, the first time you go out, you're not going to be as good as the 30th time you go out and have a conversation with a coach or an interaction or an email or, a voicemail. It's not going to be that easy to just jump in and be great. So you have to commit to getting the reps and sets necessary for you to be able to market yourself. You just got to do it. You got to commit to it. You've got to understand the process. You've got to, really, really commit to the fact that you're going to hear no a lot. And it doesn't mean that your unique ability is worthless. It just means you either haven't found the right fit for your particular unique ability, or you got to get better at selling it. It's just that simple. But you've got to get reps and sets. You got to get out there. So first off, it requires training. Secondly, it requires commitment. And last but not least, I think it requires that you understand the game within the game. So whether you're trying to tackle college basketball, college baseball, college lacrosse, it doesn't really matter what the sport is. There's a game. There's buyers and there's sellers. I'm going to say it again. There's buyers and there's sellers. And if you're in the selling part, and if you are a parent or a player looking to play at the next level, you're a seller. Okay? You are a seller. If I'm a college coach, I am a buyer. If I'm a pro scout, I'm a buyer. So no different than when you grab your little shopping cart and you go down the aisle and you're going shopping. There's a reason why you pick up a certain box of cereal. There's a reason why you pick up a certain bottle of shampoo. Because you have a level of expectation before you get in that aisle. Then you see the box that strikes off some reaction in your brain. And you say, I came here for this. I found it. I'm going to grab that bottle. And for some of us, sometimes we've had this experience, right? Where you grab a bottle and you're like, I don't like the way that bottle feels. I'm going to grab another bottle, put that bottle back. The same exact thing that your brain goes through is what college coaches and pro scouts have to do on a day in, day out basis. They are in the market for people that can help them. And sometimes when they pick up that bottle, they don't like it. They put it down and pick up another one. But they are buying. So what you have to do if you're on the selling end is understand the game within the game. And what I basically mean by that is you have to understand, and this requires you to commit to this and understanding the game within the game, which simply means you have to know what the buyers want so that you can sell what they want and get and have a level of success that is unique to you. And I hope that makes sense after you heard it once. I'll say it one more time. You have to understand the game within the game. There's buyers, there's sellers. How can you market yourself so that the buyers in the market are attracted to what you're selling? It's very, very simple concept, very, very difficult to do if you don't know the game within the game. I'll give you a very brief example. I have a client that I work with, and we just did a simple role play, and I said, hey, listen, let's act like you're on campus for the first time, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And, so I asked them a couple of questions, and then I said, okay, well, now you ask me some questions like I'm the coach. And one of the questions he asked was, what about my playing time? And it was a very innocent question. He didn't ask it in a nasty way. But I stopped him immediately and I said, what do you think that tells me as a coach? That tells me either A, you're not very confident in your abilities, B, you don't want competition, you want assurances that you're going to play every single day, or C, I'm going to have a problem on my hands if you don't get your way in regards to the amount of playing time that you think you're entitled to. So it becomes an entitlement issue. These are big deals, guys. This is a problem. This is an issue, okay? So we cannot, and when I say cannot, I mean we cannot have situations where players are not aware of the game within the game, because something as simple as that, you could be a 7 out of 10. I'm liking you. I'm digging you. I'm becoming more and more vested in the fact that I think I want to bring you on campus and make you an offer. You say one thing, that might just shut down the deal. You ask that one question like that, in that format, you may have a situation where the coach gets off the phone or is done with you on your visit and says, yeah, that kid's going to be a problem, or you know what, we should offer the other kid. He just seemed a little bit more self-assured. He wasn't asking me about playing time and stuff like that. So, you know, this is a very unique set of skills here, just to kind of review for those of you writing stuff down or kind of just picking some mental notes. We're talking about unique ability, understanding that you have a unique ability that can be marketed to a school. Doesn't matter what it is. Everyone has a unique ability. We talked about 3 requirements. It requires you to get trained on how to do this. You've got to get training. You've got to get coaching. It also requires you to commit to the process and get better as you go, reps and sets. And then it also requires you to understand the game within the game. These are the things you have to do. Once you've already defined your unique ability and what it is, what's the carrot that comes with the package, then we got to go through those 3 steps, commit to those 3 steps. And we've got a tremendous opportunity to have an advantage in the marketplace in regards to college placement or pro placement if you're looking to get drafted or signed or whatever the next part of your journey is. The last thing I'll say as we're kind of closing down the call here, you know, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what I do every single day with helping families get the notoriety they deserve and take back control of the dream that your son or daughter's had since they were 5, 6, 7 years old is the fact that, you know, what we're talking about today is the antithesis of what some of the national recruiting services are offering. And I have a lot of clients that come through and they're like, hey, I went through this program and that program, and you will never have an opportunity to market yourself uniquely if you're going through what's called a boilerplate or templated program that 50,000 other kids have gone through. That makes absolutely no sense when we think about that logically, of how in the world can my kid stand out when his video looks just like the other kids, his emails look just like the other kids, his conversation sounds like everybody else's kids, etc., etc., etc. So it isn't about one of my favorite sayings. This isn't about getting seen, guys. If you want to get seen, you can go out and buy an email database for probably less than $100 of every college coach in the country and just blast out your video link on YouTube. That's a very easy way to gain exposure. But we're not in the exposure business here at CoachSantiago.com. We are here in the business of getting placed, being very specific about the schools we want to work with, attracting those schools, doing the right interaction. And so I am not here to bash anybody's program. That's not what this is about. I'm just saying to you that if you want to take this opportunity to say, you know what, my son or my daughter or I, if I'm the player, I feel like I am this. It's going to be very, very hard for any coach to ever get that message if you're inside of some national box that's been used by 10, 15, 20,000 other athletes. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to think you can do that. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, because I know there's some people out there listening to this that, you know, are a part of some of those organizations. And some of those organizations are great, and they provide a service and they provide a certain value proposition. But I think that when we're talking about things like unique abilities, that's a very specific issue. And specific issues cannot be solved when you're a part of a broad program. You have to definitely market yourself individually, uniquely, strategically. And again, that stuff requires coaching, it requires commitment, and it requires you to understand the game within the game. I'll tell you a quick little story before I wrap up this podcast. I remember coaching a player, I won't mention his name, but he was a 5'7" player, and he came onto my program. I coached an 18 and under team. Pretty good, nationally recognized 18 under travel team. And I remember signing this kid as a 15-year-old or 14-year-old, and he was just a really nice kid. And I thought that it would be nice to have him on the team the first year because he was just a great kid. Very limited talent-wise, very limited ability, but just a great kid. And I remember talking to the dad and saying, listen, we're going to keep him around. I want him to be around. I think I can help him. I think I can develop him. But, I was letting them know that, as we continue to grow as a team and grow as an organization, he may not last here just because he may not have what it takes talent-wise to compete. And I want you to be able to compete and play and all that kind of good stuff. And the dad said, DJ, we love you. Want to be a part of your program. We're going to keep him in. And I said, okay. And every year after that, the kid stayed in my program for 4 years. Every year after that, I kept having that uncomfortable conversation with his dad saying, I don't know if he's going to get a lot of playing time this year. I don't know if he's going to get a lot of playing time this year. We just brought in two guys. They're 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds. I don't know if he's going to be able to play over those guys. He's 5'8", 150 pounds. And every year, I'll be darned if every year he didn't crack his way into the starting lineup by the end of the season. And, and my team just kept getting bigger, stronger, faster. And he kept finding a way to come from the bench to my starting lineup by the end of the season every year. By his work ethic, by him just knowing how to be in the right place at the right time, by just simply outworking people. I had to put him in the lineup. And when it came time for him to look at colleges, he was looking at some smaller schools. And there was a good school in Ohio, national championship type program. He was getting recruited there. He did a great job in the classroom. And his unique ability was making the last person on that roster work that much harder because he was going to come take their spot. And then once he did that, he was pushing for the last guy on that lineup card, and he was going to come after that spot. And, that was his unique ability. And as he started doing campus visits, this one school that was a national contender brought him in. And because of the coaching that he had received, we had talked about his unique ability. And I told him, I said, hey, make sure you mention that if he gives you an inch, you're going to take a mile in regards to an opportunity to play. And he mentioned that. And it was something very unique. The coach never heard that. And the only reason I know that is because he called me. He said, hey, we just had a visit with your player, such and such. And he said something very interesting. I said, what's that, coach? He said, if I give him an inch, he's going to take a mile as far as playing time goes because he's going to work that hard for me. He's going to push me to make a decision. And I said, wow, that sounds great. That sounds crazy, man. Wow, what a great line. And it ended up turning itself into an opportunity to get an offer. He qualified to be a part of the program. And, of course, they told him, look, you're small, you're a little guy, you're not going to get a whole lot of playing time, but we want you around. Maybe you play a little bit of JV ball as a freshman, or maybe we'll redshirt you, but it doesn't look very good for you because we got a lot of bigger, stronger guys. But we love the way you sold yourself. We think you're a great student, and we'd love to have you part of the program. And I'll fast forward and simply say this. This particular player ended up winning 2 national championships with this particular team, this college. And he's got 2 national championship rings, and he was on the field for both national championship victories. He got the dog pile. He got to jump on the field. He got to celebrate with all his teammates as a starter on a national championship team. So for those of you out there listening to this who are being persuaded by the market to think that only X amount of players get an opportunity, or if you're not going to go Division I, why waste your time? Yada, yada, yada. You got to be so big. You got to be so good. My kid's not getting any attention. He must not be that good. Again, it's not about what you're selling, it's how you're selling it. And just because this player had a tagline for himself, which was, you give me an inch, I'm going to take a mile. It stuck out in that coach's head. And then he had to fulfill that prophecy, and he did. So that's part of the game as athletes that we play. We make guarantees. We make promises. We make pledges. And then if you're really an athlete mentally, you know you made that commitment. And so it's going to get you up out of bed. It's going to make you go early to practice. It's going to make you stay late. It's going to make you do some things that perhaps you didn't want to do. But because you made that promise, because you found out what your unique ability was and you marketed yourself that way, you now have an opportunity to take your game to the next level because you got to deliver on your promise. Unique ability, ladies and gentlemen. This particular practice of understanding your unique ability can save you a lot of time, frustration, and more importantly, attract the opportunities that you're always in the market to look for, which is player advancement. With that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast. Love talking to you guys. If there's anything I can personally do, please make sure you go to CoachSantiago.com and reach out to me. If I can help you in any way, shape, or form, you can give me a call directly. I answer my own phone. It's 407-745-0509. That's my direct line. You can give me a call anytime. And remember, coaching is an action, it's not a position. Have a great night.